Pete was military, so he was hardcore. Everything was salute. He showed no emotions really when my parents died, but he never broke down, but you could see the hurt. I put so much of my success on my brother Pete's.
When you're in college, you might choose business studies or something like that.
Right.
But how important is it that kids understand the value of money and even basic business concepts?
Here's the problem. They have to learn it at home, not at school.
Yeah.
School produces imitators. They're going to produce people who are going to imitate, not people who are going to generate. It's hard for people to be morally correct, ethically correct, and just honest. It's unfortunate that this is embedded in a lot of the employees here in the UAE.
Yeah.
So I left America, I moved to Morocco.
Yeah.
I realized there was no way for me to sustain myself there because businesses were limited for expats. After that, I moved to Egypt. I played basketball in Egypt, professional basketball. I also worked in a school, and I moved over to Saudi. After that, I did various jobs in Saudi, property management. I was a general manager for a refrigeration company, and I was a principal in a school. Real estate is the poor man's way to get rich, like buying properties, holding them, and renting them out. And I've always felt that way myself, so I never went that route. And I don't have to walk on eggshells.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about anyone stealing my business from me. I could take an Emirati to court if I have to, if it comes to that.
Yeah.
And I can win.
Welcome to Evolve and Inspire, a podcast that proves success isn't about where you start, but where you decide to go. I'm your host, Huzaifa, and each episode we bring you raw, unfiltered conversations with remarkable individuals who've defied the odds, broken through barriers, and transformed their circumstances. From humble beginnings to extraordinary achievements, our guests share their journeys of resilience, determination, and unwavering spirit. These aren't just success stories, they're blueprints of possibility, showing that your background doesn't define your future. Whether you're starting from scratch, facing obstacles, or seeking inspiration to take that next bold step, you're in the right place. Together, we'll explore the mindsets and pivotal moments that turn adversity into advantage. So join me as we uncover stories that prove that with the right mindset and determination, anyone can evolve beyond their circumstances and inspire others along the way. This is Evolve and Inspire. Let's begin. Welcome to another episode of Evolve and Inspire. Today we have Jamie Haytham Watkins, all the way from New York, who's moved over to Dubai, and he's set up successful businesses within the UAE and the GCC region. One of his businesses is a subleasing company, along with a sports academy and some educational institutes. Jamie, how you doing? You okay?
I'm good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I can't complain.
Alhamdulillah.
Take me all the way back to you as a child, where you grew up and how you went into school. What was your family background?
Excellent. Yeah. Well, we like to say that we're foundational Black Americans. We were there for generations in America. My original roots, I don't know where they're from. Africa for sure, but we're in Africa. We never know, and I've never taken a DNA test to assure because it wasn't really important to me. But to take you back, I had a great childhood. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in a very tough neighborhood called Bedford-Stuyvesant, and my mom moved us to Queens, which is a more suburban area, better schools, and a better quality of life. And so I grew up, most of my teenage years were in Queens, New York. Went to some of the better schools there and was educated fairly well, My mom, unfortunately, passed away at 14. When I was 14 years old, I came home and I found her, I think it was the 9th of September, 1986. I came home and I found that she had passed away on a chair. After that, everything in my life seemed to have changed. So I had my dad, but my dad at that point was a bit sickly. And then at 16 years old, he passed away, from kidney failure. And things pretty much went downhill after that. I was pretty much on my own. For whatever reasons, the the family didn't take me in.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we were disfranchised. I just thought that because my mom and dad was doing pretty well, they figured I was okay, but I don't think anyone realized I was only 16 years old.
Do you have any siblings?
I had a bunch of siblings. I mean,
Yeah.
it was 10 of us all together,
Ah, okay.
you know.
Where are you in the pecking order in the siblings?
I was the youngest.
Oh, you're the youngest.
I was the youngest, you know. So I guess my maturity is the thing that had people thinking, oh, he'll be okay, and that type of, you know, the after my mom passed away, she's what they call that, the matriarch.
Yeah.
She's the matriarch of the family. So things kind of like everyone went their separate ways after that, and there was no unity in the family. So I think that led to when my father died, that kind of us being disenfranchised at the time, pretty much the love wasn't there like it was before.
After your mum passed away, who were you living with?
My dad.
Oh, you're living with your
I was
dad.
living with my dad.
Were any of your siblings about, or?
Yeah, I had one brother living with me.
Oh, yeah,
my favorite brother, who also became Muslim.
Oh,
Yeah,
mashallah.
his name is Pete. After Islam, his name is Islam, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How were you like at school?
I was bad. I was very bad at school.
Wait.
I only remember one grade where I was good. In 6th grade,
Okay.
yeah, I had a 6th grade teacher, and I think the reason why that was good for me was because I lived in an all-white neighborhood, you know, in Queens Village, so that was kind of tough, you know.
How was school going? Was your school predominantly white, or?
Predominantly white.
How was that in terms
So
of?
I think at that time, I don't think that it was overt racism, but it was there.
Yeah.
You know, and also the school system was better there than what I was used to in New York, in Brooklyn.
Okay.
School system was much better. The mathematics was more advanced. Let's say 3rd grade mathematics in Brooklyn compared to 3rd grade mathematics in Queens was a vast difference.
Yeah.
Right? And I couldn't keep up. And I think that I was probably looked at as, we expect that he can't keep up.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? And there was no remedial classes for me to take. I was barely getting by. It wasn't horrible. I was able to get by. I was able to pass tests. But compared to how I was in Brooklyn, I was horrible. And
You lost your mum at a very young age. How did that shape you? Or how did that affect you at that particular time?
losing her at a young age, a lot of that stuff, I don't know why, mentally has been blocked out. I forgot a lot. But I just, losing your mom at that age, those are the formidable years while you're still, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seeing a mother and a father together, like how do you treat your wife when you get married?
Yeah.
Those talks from your mom about how to treat women, when you get married and things of this nature, talks with your dad about how do you respond to someone at work, the bosses, how can I say, being very hard on you.
Yeah.
I never got those pep talks. I had to learn through trial and error.
How important was your brother Pete at that time?
Pete was military.
Okay.
So he was hardcore. Everything was salute.
Yeah.
There was nothing else with Pete. Like, he was a hard guy. Like, even he showed no emotions really when my parents died, but he never broke down, but you can see the hurt.
He bottled it
in
up.
him. He bottled it up. He's a tough guy. He, to this day, is my rock. He's the guy, like, when my success, I put so much of my success on my brother Pete's shoulders. If it wasn't for him, I don't think that I would have accomplished so much, because a lot of times I'm trying to impress him.
Yeah.
So I go harder.
Do you see Pete as a father figure to you?
No. He played the right role in my life.
Yeah.
He was a brother. We both were from the streets of New York City.
Yeah.
And I don't think that part would have worked. He was my older brother I always looked up to, and that's what I needed.
Do you feel like you're closer to your dad in terms of personality, or do you think Pete's closer to your dad in terms of personality?
I think both of us were totally different than my dad.
Are they all three different?
Yeah, I'm totally different because I'm an entrepreneur. I would never I always looked at having my own. I've never liked taking orders from people or people telling me what to do. My dad seemed to not have a problem with that. He always worked, but he always had high positions.
Do you think the reason why your dad didn't have an issue with that was because obviously it was a different era at that time, and he had to provide for all his children?
I think that was the only role he knew how to play.
Yeah.
And the only role he knew how to be in. And at that time, there wasn't many black entrepreneurs.
Yeah. No, because like I'm similar to you. My dad, I don't really see him as an entrepreneur, but my dad would go to work at the specific time. He'd work hard. And it's funny because we make this joke all the time that every business he's been at, he's only left once that business has shut down. So like he used to work for a car manufacturer called Rover in the UK, and when that went into administration, he left, retrained as a gas engineer. But I think that the way they moved from India to the UK and the responsibilities they had at such a young age for not only the children but parents as well, I don't think they've ever been able to take the risk that I've been able to take, or my brother has been able to take, because we have like a fallback option, whereas they never had a fallback option.
Right.
For them, it was just about grafting, putting food on the table, and just making sure everyone was all right. So it was a different. They're not able to take any risk compared to us.
I'll say this, right? My family didn't. My mother nor father didn't hide me from anything.
Yeah.
So growing up in the inner cities, you saw businessmen in the inner cities. They just weren't the right businessmen. They weren't in the right businesses.
Yeah.
But you saw very, very influential figures in the neighborhoods, and I saw a business, but it just wasn't the right business to be in. It was actually more difficult than corporate America. Once I went into corporate America, once I started businesses, I realized that businesses that I saw on the street, they were businesses. They were organized.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot from that. Unfortunately, it was unfortunate, but fortunate now that I saw things back then that wasn't it was negative, but I was able to turn it into a positive. So though my dad wasn't that entrepreneurial type, and actually, let me go back. My mom and dad was, because they were into real estate. They weren't into buying properties and renting them out, right? But just me, I'm kind of hard on people who and never no disrespect to my family, because they did great, and they I hope they raised me well. But one of the things that I've always looked at that's not businesses to me, not changing the subject, like when I see people buy and sell properties, that's not a business to me. It's the poor man's way of getting rich. If you understand what I'm saying. I understand that, so I don't ever look at it like, oh man, they were great business people. They were great parents.
Unless you're doing that on like a proper high scale.
On a proper high scale, exactly.
With a lot of staff members, and I agree with that.
It's well known, I mean, I'm not the only one to say this, but real estate is the poor man's way to get rich, like buying properties, holding them, and renting them out. And I've always felt that way myself, so I never went that route.
I think it's because real estate is probably one of the safest investments at times. And if you hold something long enough, you're going to either make your money back or make an appreciation.
And the thing with the debate on that is that first off, you have to look at inflation. I buy a property now, I say I'm going to hold it for 30 years and then sell. Well, when you look at the rate of inflation and when you look at what the dollar is worth or the dirham is worth 30 years later, you really, unless you got a really great deal, 9 times out of 10, you just got your money back and a few thousand more. Yeah. Because 500 dirhams today is not 500 dirhams 30 years from now. So I think
I have this conversation with everyone all the time about inflation, and I say to people like, what people don't realize, like even in Islam, if I'm loaning you money now, realistically should be hedged against gold, because gold is something physical. Right. So if I'm giving you £10,000 today, in 10 years time, if you're repaying me like £10,000, the £10,000 is not worth the same, because if I was to get, for example, eggs and milk with it, I'm getting a lot less eggs and milk in 10 years time than I am today.
Perfect analogy.
And that's why you've got to always hedge it against what the value of gold is. So today I might give you £10,000. It might be X amount of grams of gold.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to repay me that back in 10 years' time, it should be X amount of gold. And you can give me the monetary value of it at that particular moment in time.
Right. And again, perfect analogy. So just growing up, I never wanted to do business like that, even though I did go in that arena because I had no choice.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something, at first of all, I didn't think it was very creative. It wasn't innovative. And I wanted to do something different. And I always felt like that kind of money, buy, hold, and get the rent was slow money.
Yeah, it is slow money because your yield is a lot less than what you'd get in a business, for example.
Right.
Especially like if you compare it to like a service-based business. My background's accounting.
Okay.
So if you were to buy, and we have this conversation all the time about accounting practice is actually an asset. Like some people go invest in houses, but an accountant's practice you can keep hold on to and sell it in 10 years' time because you're selling your block of fees, your turnover at 1.5 times what the turnover is. And your yield that you're getting, the profit that you're getting, and the recurring income you're getting is significantly higher than what you would do in a property.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
I totally understand because
Yeah.
it's the same way that I think. And, you know, I just, it's not the business I ever recommend people go into. Whenever someone tells me they're going to buy a property, my first question is why?
Yeah.
You know, and most people have to hold on to an asset. If they don't see it, it's like I don't want it.
It's like security. People want security.
That security you got to have it. With me, I don't need it. I don't care if there's, you know, I don't have to own it as long as it's producing income.
Yeah, I agree with that. So after 16, I presume you left school. What was next after that?
Well, after 16 years old, I kind of like went in another direction.
Yeah.
You know, and by choice.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I didn't have money. My mom and dad left me enough money to really be okay, stay in school and do whatever, but I chose not to do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, they had left me property, they left me, again, money, and I chose to do other things other than what I was supposed to do. Yeah.
When did you first start your first business?
I first started my first business, I would say my first collaboration in business is when I was delivering newspapers at 9 years old.
Yeah.
And so when I used to deliver these newspapers, the newspaper company had, you know, a representative, and he used to get kids in the neighborhood to deliver these newspapers on their bikes. And so when they come and when they gave me a job, they said, look, you're going to get 30% and we're going to get 70%. So right then at 9 years old, I started to understand percentages in business. So I go out, I deliver the newspapers. I also would collect the money, come back. If it was $10, I gave him $7. I kept $3 for myself. And that's how that was my first business, and understanding like, hey, even at that age, I thought, what if I was the company?
Yeah.
And I was getting the 70%.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I'm the one doing all the work, delivering the papers and things like this. So, you know, at an early age, I was introduced to business, I should say business concepts.
Yeah. How important do you think that is for children, especially like, for example, children going to schools? They're not really taught any of this unless you kind of choose to do it in the UK, for example. Unless you choose to do it after you're 16 when you're in college, you might choose business studies or something like that.
Right.
But how important is it that kids understand the value of money and, you know, even basic business concepts?
Here's the problem. They have to learn it at home, not at school.
Yeah.
School produces imitators.
Yep.
Right? They're going to produce people who are going to imitate, not people who are going to generate.
Yep.
Right? So why would I want the sheep to learn how I make the bread?
Yep.
Right? So what happens is with myself, and it's not good for everyone else. I specifically worked hard to get to where I am so that my kids can be homeschooled and I can watch my kids daily. So my kids are homeschooled. I'm in the house on a daily basis. My clients come to my house when I do business with them. My assistant and my son is usually in the room listening
Yeah.
to how I'm doing business. Business has to be taught in the home.
Yeah.
It has to be hands-on, and because business comes with mannerisms. How do I talk to this person? Your emotional intelligence actually is enhanced when you're watching someone doing it. You know what to say, what not to say, and you actually become better than the person that is mentoring you, because you add your own sauce to it all, and you become better than that person if you have that kind of ability. So I find in my home, I think for me, it's up to parents to teach their kids business. It's not for, the school to do that, because you see a guy, he can't even get a job when he gets out of school.
Yeah.
Let's say he went to school for business administration like myself. Usually you don't work in that field, so school is not something I promote. I'm not against it. I don't promote it.
I think I'm in the exact same boat as you. I feel like school fails too many people, because if you look at people that are successful according to the society, I feel like a lot of them probably failed in school or did fail in school. And school, like you said, is just a memory test. I was good at school. I came out of school with good results, good grades. But again, as soon as I left school, I decided I want to go into the real world. I don't want to go to that college, university, all of that. I want to go into the real world and learn whilst I'm working. Right. And I feel like school just fails a lot of people, because I've seen people that are so really smart in certain aspects, but they're never going to be given that respect or them opportunities, because they've got a piece of paper that probably doesn't say that they're good enough on that piece of paper, but they're very good at certain things.
It's funny you say that, Hudayfa, right? Because, rich people, educated people work for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
They won't do what I do. They can't.
Yeah, I agree.
They don't have that mindset. They want to work for you.
Yeah.
And you have to always identify that.
Yeah. I think, look, at the end of the day, I think now with social media, businesses are so glorified that it's for everyone, but it's not. There are people that are there for 9 to 5 that might be smarter than you, smarter than, I have people that work for me that are probably smarter than me, but at the end of the day, they're comfortable in their 9 to 5. They're comfortable with that security. That's where they're at in life, and that's their mindset. And I think it's a mindset thing. Whereas being an entrepreneur, being a business person, is not for everyone. And people always see, like, they'll probably see your videos and they'll probably see, okay, he's gone and got this property now, he's going to make X amount of money, but they won't see everything that's gone in up to that point. Right. They won't see the fact that when everyone else that works for you switches off at 5 o'clock and goes home, you're still working, or your mind's still working.
Right.
After, so your first business was doing newspapers.
Newspapers, second business.
Yeah. After college, did you ever go to a corporate job or?
Yeah, I worked in corporate America for a few years.
What did you do?
Property management. I'm a certified property manager, certified asset manager.
Okay. And when did you move over to the UAE?
I moved over to UAE back in 2008, but I was in other countries before I came to the UAE.
Okay, so tell us your journey then after leaving America.
So I left America. I moved to Morocco I lived there for maybe 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
Realized that there was no way for me I loved Morocco actually.
Yeah.
I realized there was no way for me to sustain myself there, because businesses were limited for expats. After that, I moved to Egypt. I played basketball in Egypt, professional basketball. I also worked in a school in Egypt. Egypt was it was a decent place, kind of tough. And I moved over to Saudi after that. And I was in Saudi for about 4 to 5 years. I did various jobs in Saudi, property management. I was a general manager for a refrigeration company, and I was a principal in a school. That was my last job in Saudi. I was a principal in a school, and then I started my own business in Saudi Arabia, buying and selling abayas and Islamic clothing on eBay. And so, and as well as sneakers. And I became eBay's #1 seller in each category that I was in.
In Saudi?
In Saudi Arabia.
Ah, okay.
And so when we decided to leave Saudi, we thought we'll go back to Egypt, and we were going to stay in Egypt because it was cheap to live there. Labor would be cheap, and we were making so much money on eBay. And what had happened is that the guy in Saudi who was supposed to ship our stuff stole all of our goods in Saudi. And of course, we were selling goods to people, but we didn't have them because we were thinking our shipment was coming over, and we tanked. So we were sitting in Egypt on savings and running out of money. And so I came over to the UAE.
What did you do when you came over to the UAE?
I got a teaching job at first because we were broke.
Yeah.
You know, so I had to get a teaching job. I forgot which, New Horizons or one of those English institutes.
Yeah.
And from the English Institute, while I was working there, I was definitely going through the want ads looking for jobs. And I saw that Dubai World had just started a new company called Limitless.
What year was this?
This is 2008.
Oh, so you're here in 2008 in the UAE?
2007, 2008, right before the subprime mortgage crisis.
Yeah.
And so I went to a company. It was a property management arm of Dubai World. And I sat in an interview. It was the first time that property management was becoming a thing here, where people say, okay, we need property management, we need asset management. So I came to the UAE at the right time, and I was hired as a property manager over for Limitless, which was a company, a subsidiary of Dubai World. And so my career in property management, I was back on track. My career in property management took off after 7 years of living overseas.
Yeah.
I was able to get a job, and I never looked back, I would say, after that.
What did you do after that?
With Dubai World?
Yeah.
I left them, it was a subprime mortgage crisis, so they were laying people off. And my brother, Saeed Ahmed, Saeed, who is Emirati, he's a local, even during that whole, people were getting fired like crazy. He would not let me go. He just liked me so much. Yeah. I was a convert, and he felt like it was a duty on him to keep me on and to keep working. And I'm looking around and everybody's getting fired. And I just saw that there was other opportunities and I might not be there for the long haul. He could only help me but so much. Yeah. And may Allah bless him for keeping me on as long as he did. He gave me a raise during the subprime mortgage crisis. I was on 27,000 dirham back in 2008.
Yeah.
He gave me a raise, I think, from 19 to 27,000 during a storm, so kudos to that brother. May Allah increase him. But I was headhunted by a company in Qatar called Wasif, and I started working Wasif as head of property management. There was the biggest project in the Middle East, which was called Barwa City, 6,000 units. Okay. And so I managed those 6,000 units of housing for Wasif. And then after Wasif, I went on to work with a sheikh, one sheikh there in Qatar, as his head of general manager for property management. And that's when my business career took off again. Okay. When I was working with him, I opened up a sports academy. Yeah. Because he had a lot of properties there, and a lot of properties that were underutilized, football pitches and tennis courts and basketball courts. And so I utilized them and turned it into a sports academy. Every facility he had, I filled it up with either sports or educational activities for kids, focusing on kids from 6 months to 12 years old. That was the main focus. 12 and 14 years old, actually.
That was in 2000 and...
Now, I started that in 2012, and it's still existing now.
It's good timing for you with the World Cup and How did that affect?
Good. I left,
Yeah.
in 2019, but it was, I don't know how well the World Cup, how much it did for Qatar,
Yeah.
but it just showed how good of a nation they were.
Yeah, it did.
Because during that time, they gave a lot of dawah.
Yeah.
A lot of people came to Islam. So that was more important to me than the actual World Cup event.
Yeah, of course.
I think they did a great job at so many other things, but people just focused on football.
When obviously we were based in the UK at that time in that whole World Cup, and there was just a whole negative spin on everything. And I know people that went to the World Cup, and they've said they've gone to multiple World Cups, and they said that was the best World Cup.
Look, when Qatar does it, they do it big.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I give them big kudos for, how they do things, and they want to be the best at what they do.
Yeah.
And plus the leadership is very intelligent.
Yeah.
Very intelligent leaders.
Yeah.
I know some of their family members, they're really big on education. I don't know one of them that doesn't speak 3 languages.
Wow.
From those families, you know what I mean? So they're big on education, not just on, okay, we have money.
Yeah.
Let's just, do whatever we want to do. It's not like that. They really got their, they have their heads screwed on right.
How many languages do you speak?
There's 2, Arabic and English.
You speak Arabic?
Yeah.
Are you extremely, can you write and read Arabic? Or
I
just
can
speak?
write. I can read it and speak it. Writing is difficult for me.
How long did it take you to learn Arabic?
Still learning.
Still learning.
Still learning.
It's such a difficult language.
Years, it's a very difficult language.
Yeah.
It's
probably I think probably one of the hardest languages in the world, apart from I think like things like Mandarin.
Right.
I think Mandarin's ranked.
It's the hardest.
Yeah.
I hear that's the hardest. Yeah.
Yeah, but Arabic's just right up there. But
yeah, with the grammar alone.
Yeah.
The grammar alone is very intricate, but once you learn the language, you can say when you learn the language and you listen to Quran, that's when you can tear up.
Yeah.
Because love in Arabic, for someone to say love like muhabba or uhibbuk fillah, I love you for the pleasure of Allah, it's totally different than I love you in English.
Yeah, it's totally
It takes
different.
on a totally different meaning, so it's the importance of learning the Arabic language.
So were you in Qatar for the whole up until 2019, or did you come back within that time?
I was investing in the Emirates. I left the Emirates, but I was still investing in properties here.
Ah, okay.
So I was highly involved because during the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis, I had money during that time. So I was spending a lot of money buying properties in America, buying properties in the UAE at that time because they were pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Things were very cheap. So I capitalized on.
And did you move as a family back? When did you move back?
2019, I had some issues in Qatar in 2016. So I was planning to make my way out of Qatar as soon as things got better.
Yeah.
So I opened up a couple of companies in Qatar.
Yeah.
And I was able to get back on my feet with these new companies, BK Sports, which stands for Brooklyn
Okay.
Sports. It's still probably first or second largest sports academy in Qatar to this day.
Yeah.
Brooklyn, Lego Robotics, Brooklyn. It's called Brooklyn for Brooklyn, the city I'm from. So I pride myself on those companies still running after 10 years.
Yeah.
And they're the longest running companies in their respected fields till, in Qatar.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Built some really good brands there.
When did you start your subleasing business?
In 2019, I came to Dubai and the the COVID hit.
Yeah.
A year, like in January of 2020.
Yeah.
Right. So it was tough, but I took the bull by the horns and tried to open up a brokerage in 2021, I believe.
Yeah.
Good move if I understood how brokerages work, but I was a property manager trying to run a brokerage, and that didn't go over too well. It didn't go over too well, and we had to close the brokerage down. After that,
what was the reason that the brokerage didn't work? Was it a lack of knowledge or experience?
Knowledge. Period.
Yeah.
lack of knowledge, and also a very tumultuous market that is not ethical and is very immoral.
Yeah.
So I learned that after I closed
Yeah.
the brokerage down, So if I opened it up again, yeah, it would fail again.
It would fail again. Yeah.
It would fail again.
Yeah.
But the next business I opened up, pretty much, we had 2 restaurants in Ras Al Khaimah, so
Okay.
we were still moving,
Yeah.
and making money here. But then the end of 2023, I heard that subleasing is going to become legal in the UAE. It was always illegal.
Yeah.
And so the January 2024, I started the subleasing business.
And how did that start?
It started, I made a challenge to myself that I would make $1 million and have 10 homes by the end of 2024. I said I would have 10 properties, not homes.
Yeah.
10 properties. I would sublease 10 properties, and I would have made over $1 million in 1 year.
Explain to us how this subleasing works.
Okay, so what I do, I find buildings, and these buildings are for rent. I approach the owners. We negotiate a deal for the whole building. I get favorable conditions where the owner might give me 3 months, a 3-month period, grace period,
Yeah.
before the building, before I start paying rent. I ask for a 3 to 5 year contract because it's a long game, right? The owner gives me permission to sublease
Yeah.
because there's no, how can I say? There's no license
Yeah.
for just subleasing, unless people try to say, I do have a license, but I have different licenses. But there's nothing specifically for subleasing
Yeah.
except permission from the owner, so you
Yeah.
can do it. The problem is that you can only have 3 properties in your name because by law, after 3 properties, you're going to have to start a business.
Yeah.
And then you can put all your businesses,
Yeah. Yeah.
all your properties in
into
your
the
business.
business,
So
yeah.
that's what happened with me. I got 3. I was forced to get a license, so I got the license, but there's no license specifically
For subleasing.
for the subleasing. And so going back to how do you start approaching the owner, ask for a 3-month, I asked for a 3-year contract to 5-year contract, negotiate the terms with them, make sure they're favorable to me. Usually within those 3 months, I will finish off my construction in 1 month.
Yeah.
Those other 2 months are free money.
Yeah.
So I get off to a great head start. I can probably fill the building up within 1 month. So I've gotten rent for 1 month, and then I get rent for the second month, and my rent doesn't start until the next month. And I got 3 months before I have to pay him.
Yeah.
So I can sublease a building and have 500,000-600,000 dirhams in my pocket before I have to pay rent, before my rent starts.
And when your rent starts, is it on a monthly basis or is it in 12? Is it 12 checks? One check?
You can negotiate. I just did a deal now with the guy. It was such a great deal with an Emirati brother. And he wanted 2 checks. The building was only 800,000 a year, but by law it's a 12-unit building. And
Yeah.
it was only 800,000. So he wanted 2 checks. 750,000. He wanted 2 checks. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll give you 2 checks for something like that because the deal was so good.
And how often do you find these properties? Or are there a lot of them about, or is there
People come to me now.
people come to you now?
I
So
don't
you
have
source
to
them.
look for them. I don't search for them
okay.
anymore. People will come to me with the properties.
What's the greatest challenge you found with this business whilst you were starting up or whilst you were going?
Finding good employees.
Finding good employees.
Yeah, like any other business. I think you can make someone a good employee. You can't make someone honest.
I agree.
And that's the problem in the industry.
Yeah,
You don't find many honest people.
I agree. I think
know.
one of the probably downsides of the UAE is that services, a lot of people, they're just too yes men. They'll
Right.
say yes, 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 yes to everything until they encounter a problem and they'll be like, okay, but this is the issue now. But it's like, no, you should have told me that at the beginning. but everyone just says yes to everything.
You're right. And you know, the thing is that we can teach you.
Yeah.
We can teach you. You can become a great employee, but for some reasons, it's hard for people to be morally correct, ethically correct, you know, and just honest. It's very difficult. And when you've been in a place where here, that's how things have gone, and this is how you've been able to get by. So, you know, it's unfortunate that this is embedded in a lot of the employees here in the UAE.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree. Yeah.
This is what you'll get.
How do you think your background and how you were raised, especially coming from a place like Brooklyn, Queens, how important was that for you to shape you in terms of when you have setbacks? As an entrepreneur, you generally get setbacks quite often. How important was that?
I would say growing up in Brooklyn, very tough place. You have to be very careful, always looking over your shoulder. Make sure you're polite to people, because that might be the last time words come out your mouth.
Yeah.
You know, so you learn to live humble, but you also learn to be a lion.
Yeah.
But you know, there's a time and place for everything, right? That's growing up in Brooklyn, New York. I can be a rabbit, or I can be a tiger.
Yeah.
You know, you're a chameleon. Growing up in Queens, and everything is just black and white. It was, you know, you didn't deal with the elements you had to deal with in Brooklyn. So there was no shade. There was always, it's either this way or it's that way. It was very, very simple life. The only thing I had to live with when I was living in Queens growing up was racism.
Yeah.
So I learned how to deal with that.
And how did you deal with that?
Sometimes you come here to the UAE, and there's a lot of people bring their racist views and concepts with them from their countries.
Yeah.
And it's up to me sometimes to erase that.
Yeah.
To show them a black man who's very successful.
Yeah.
Fairly intelligent to some, not lucky. No one gave it to me. They see hard work. So I kill a lot of the misnomers about people of any race, for that matter.
Yeah.
You know, and just being kind to people and killing people with a smile is enough, you know. So I was, you know, my background helped me in those areas, because I had people writing, like literally putting KKK in my lawn, you know, and doing all sorts of racist things when I lived in Queens, New York, you know. So the racism I might deal with anywhere else is nothing. It's nothing.
I'm going to go back to, talk to me about your journey into Islam. Did you follow a religion before? Just take me all the way back.
Okay, I come from a very religious family.
Okay.
Very religious, church going. To this day, the majority of the family are deacons and deaconess in the church, meaning they sit they sit on the ashura in the churches. Yeah. So it's a very religious family, which made it easier for me to come to Islam.
Yeah.
After my mom and dad passed away, I became an atheist. I stopped believing.
Yeah.
Obvious reasons.
Yeah.
As Muslims, we're taught we were created to worship Allah.
Yeah.
Right? I wasn't taught that as a Christian. That was some of the fundamental differences in Islam and in Christianity. I'm here to worship Allah.
Yeah.
That's it. Family members, whomever, they come and they're gonna go. We're gonna die one day. And I felt like as a Christian, we have this anxiety about death. You know, not how we're gonna die, but or what's gonna happen when we die, but we don't want to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So Islam gives you purpose and gives you understanding of life and death. And so it eliminates the fears, you know? And so this is what made it easier for me to become a Muslim.
And what age did you become a Muslim?
21.
21.
Yeah, but my oldest brother, he was Muslim.
Oh, you're old? Okay.
Yeah, he was Muslim. And he just wasn't practicing.
Yeah.
You know?
How long were you looking into Islam before you reverted?
The first person to give me dawah to Islam was a Pakistani when I was 12 years old. It was a Pakistani brother named Nasser. And he had come from Pakistan, and I used to make fun of him and his clothing and things like that. And then by the 7th grade, his English was perfect, and we can communicate. And he was inviting me to the masjid. To come, see what was in the masjid. And he would talk to me about Islam. And then at this time, there was also a lot of Black Americans coming to Islam as well. But a lot of us was misguided with the type of Islam that we were learning. Nasser in the 7th grade would talk to me about how the Islam that they were talking to me about wasn't correct Islam. It was crazy, But I would say that he was the most influential person. And then a friend of mine had came home from prison, and he had a Quran, and that was the first time he had become Muslim, came home with the Quran, and that was the first time I picked up a Quran and read it. And I thought it was the Bible, just a different version of the Bible, because some of the stories that I read were the same stories. So my walk into Islam was, Allah guided me the whole way. And so it wasn't forced upon me. I was not in need, like I had this tragic event happen. No, it was like, okay, I've heard enough now. It's time.
What did that moment feel like at that specific moment when you actually took your shahada? Or what did you feel
I didn't feel, see, that's the difference. Everybody is different. I didn't feel, some people feel like, say, oh, I was about to faint. Others say the feeling was incredible. I really didn't feel anything at that time. When my faith grew in Islam, that's when I felt things, and it was beautiful. And
how long do you think it took you for your faith to grow?
Probably about 1 or 2 years. I believed. But to understand to grasp what I've gotten, Islam, what Allah gave to me, allowed me to have, like when I really grasped it, I was praying. I was going somewhere, and I was praying, and I just started crying while I was praying.
I've asked this question. I've had someone else, one of my friends in the UK, he reverted as well, and his revert story, and I asked him this question as well. I'm going to ask you, do you think that people that are born with Islam take it for granted, knowing that obviously you've come from maybe a different angle, you've seen other things, and then you've been able to embrace Islam and see the beauty of Islam? Do you think people that are born with Islam take it for granted?
I can speak for myself. Right. Once you've done everything that you possibly can in the dunya as a non-Muslim, you don't want it anymore. And after 21 years, I was full. I wanted no parts of that. Hence the reason I never go back to America, really. I've probably been back. I told someone on a podcast I've been back 7 times. I think I've only been back 4 times in 20 years. Wow. 25 years, I've been back 4 times to America to go visit.
How do you find life like in the UAE?
It's home now. Like I would never go and live anywhere else. I think I get the balance that I need. I don't feel like I can have a business here and I don't have to walk on eggshells. I don't have to worry about anyone stealing my business from me, or it's just I could take an Emirati to court if I have to, if it comes to that, and I can win. I can take him and not think, oh, he's gonna win because he's Emirati. That's, even though I've never had to do that, that's a great feeling to have, knowing that you're in a system that is going to be just. Or that's, look, my experiences at all times, I've seen people in positions of trust here. They were trustworthy. They did what they were supposed to do at that time. That's my experience in the UAE. If someone else has other experiences, that's theirs. I've only had experiences where there was fairness.
What's next for Jamie now?
Well, I was talking to my family and I said, look, I always ask people this question, and then, not question, but when I'm having conversations with people, I've always wanted to build wealth to help people. I've always used my wealth to help people. And so I said, okay, I want to become a millionaire, right? Allah made that possible. I want to become a billionaire. I want to become a billionaire. When this is not a goal, I truly believe it'll happen, right? I want to change more lives. I want to have that influence to change lives. I want to have the influence to help people give dawah on a bigger scale. I want to open up masajid in different countries. I want to help people dig wells in Africa and other countries that where people are impoverished. You can't do that unless you have money.
I agree.
You know, so the moves that I want to make, it requires me to be a billionaire. That's how I feel. The second part of it, okay, you live a decent life, but I'm old now. How much longer am I gonna?
You don't look old. I'll be honest with you. When you were telling me dates and you said 1986, and I was like, right. Yeah, you don't look that old.
No, I'm 53, man.
Oh, mashallah.
53.
Mashallah.
Yeah. So how I look at it is that I
53 and no gray hairs.
Oh, I got gray hair. I got brown henna. I put the sunnah henna in, but I don't gray up like that. Yeah. I don't gray up. I actually made dua to Allah that I gray. Yeah. I swear, man. Two things I had asked for. I wish I didn't ask for. You know, but one of them was that I didn't get gray hair, and Allah answered that dua that I don't gray too early. But you know, the subleasing is good. But I've moved on to different markets now where I actually make more doing that than I do in subleasing, even though people don't believe how much money is in the subleasing market. Yeah. You know, there's more money in subleasing than there is in Airbnb, and than there is in buying and holding properties.
To be honest with you, I think it's a lot safer as well. It's a lot safer than Airbnb because
it's safer. Yeah, it's definitely safer.
With Airbnb, you don't know how much occupancy you're gonna have and when you're gonna have occupancy. Right. Here, you're guaranteed occupancy. On top of that, you don't have a lot of money tied up into an asset, right. So it's just a constant fixed cost per year.
And the thing is that with subleasing and having so many people that are how can I say, there's a large amount of people, insurmountable amount of people in Dubai that live on under 3,000 dirhams a month.
Yeah.
That's my market.
Yeah, and that's a very good market to have.
That's a
very good market to have, right. Because you're fulfilling a need, because there is a need, and you're working on numbers in terms of occupancy. You'll have right. a lot of occupants. So it's definitely, and these people are going to be here for ages because they're working here, and you've seen how the country is and how people have come here from early 2000s, and yeah, you'll definitely.
It's like this, right? You're gonna always have more workers than you have bosses.
Yeah.
Right. The bosses can go to Marina and other places and afford that. Yeah. Managers can too. But there's many more subordinates than there are managers and bosses. Yeah. I'm for the subordinates.
Yeah. You know? Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Appreciate you.
And I wish you well. Inshallah, we could probably do something together as well soon.
Inshallah.
Thank you for joining us on another inspiring episode of Evolve and Inspire. If this story has moved you today, remember that every great journey begins with a single step. And sometimes that step is simply believing in the possibility of change. To our listeners out there facing your own challenges, remember, your current circumstances doesn't define your future. Every person we feature on this show started exactly where you might be right now, at the beginning of their journey. If you've been inspired by today's conversation, make sure to follow us on all our social media platforms that we will tag below. And don't forget to subscribe to never miss an episode. You can also join our community and continue these conversations by visiting our website. A special thank you to our guest for sharing his remarkable journey with us today. Your story will undoubtedly spark hope and motivation in countless others. Until next time, keep evolving, keep inspiring, and remember, it's not where you start, it's where you choose to go. This has been Evolve and Inspire. I'm your host, Huzaifa. Thank you for listening.